Okay, so let's get into this deep dive on the plant kingdom. We're working from the sources you've gathered, and it seems right off the bat, things have changed.
They really have. You think
hmm
of that classic Whitaker system, the five kingdoms.
Yeah, Monera, Protista, fungi, Animalia, Plantae.
Right. But what actually counts as plantae today, well, the sources make it clear that's shifted quite a bit.
How so?
Well, groups like fungi, they're out. Same for certain Monera and Protista, especially the ones that happen to have cell walls. People used to group them in sometimes.
Okay, so Plantae is more specific now.
Definitely. And even things like blue-green algae, cyanobacteria, they're not technically algae in the plant kingdom sense anymore.
Interesting. So, for this discussion, our focus is on the groups the material does cover under Plantae now. Algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and angiosperms.
Exactly. And to really get these groups, we kind of need to understand how scientists classify them. The sources mentioned this too, the evolution of classification itself.
Ah, right, from the older artificial system, like Linnaeus.
Yeah, based on just a few, maybe superficial characteristics.
So things could look similar, but not actually be closely related evolutionarily speaking.
Precisely. Then classification moved towards natural systems.
Yeah.
Bentham and Hooker, for example, looked more at overall similarities, internal features, deeper affinities.
And now we're mainly using phylogenetic systems. What's the core idea there based on the material?
Phylogenetics is all about evolutionary history, like building a family tree for plants. It uses, well, everything, structure, genetics, biochemistry, even looking at chromosomes.
Okay,
It's trying to map out the actual relationships, how these groups evolved from common ancestors.
got it. That makes sense for understanding the plants themselves. So let's start where the sources often do maybe the simplest group, algae.
Yeah, algae, the material describes them as mainly aquatic. They have chlorophyll, so they're autotrophic, make their own food.
Photosynthesis, yeah.
Right. And typically thalloid.
Phalloid,
Mhm.
meaning no complex like true roots, stems, or leaves.
Exactly. Very different body plan compared to land plants we usually picture. They range from tiny single cells to massive seaweeds.
And the sources highlight their importance.
Hugely important. Ecologically, they produce maybe half the oxygen, fix loads of carbon dioxide, form the base of aquatic food webs. Plus, we use them agar, food thickeners, all sorts of things.
Wow. Okay, so from the water, let's move towards land. The bryophytes, mosses, liverworts. The sources call them the amphibians of the plant kingdom.
That's a great description.
Yeah.
Because they live on land, sure, but they absolutely need water for sexual reproduction. The sperm has to swim.
Ah, still tied to water then.
Very much so. And they don't have true vascular tissues, xylem and phloem. So they can't really transport water efficiently or grow very tall. They have simple rhizoids, mostly just for anchoring.
And the main plant you see, the green leafy bit in a moss, that's the gamophyte, the part that makes gametes.
Right? The sporophyte, the spore-producing part, is actually smaller and depends on that gamophyte. It's kind of the reverse of what we see in most other plants.
Interesting. And ecologically.
The sources mention they're important pioneers, colonizing bare rock, helping build soil, preventing erosion. That first foothold on land.
Okay, so bryophytes are the tentative step. What about the pteridophytes? Ferns, horsetails? That sounds like a bigger leap?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sources point to this as a major step. The evolution of vascular tissues, xylem and phloem.
Right. That's the plumbing system, allows transport of water and nutrients.
Exactly. Which means they could grow much bigger, stand upright, develop true roots, stems, leaves. The dominant plant body here is the sporophyte, the larger familiar fern plant.
But still needing water for fertilization?
Still needed that water for the sperm to swim, yes. But, and this is key in the sources, some pteridophytes develop something called heterospore,
Yeah.
producing two different types of spores, male and female. And crucially, the female gamophyte develops inside this spore, often staying attached to the parent sporophyte while the embryo develops.
Ah, so the embryo isn't out on its own? That sounds almost like a seed?
It's seen as a really important precursor to the seed habit, which leads us, naturally, to the gymnosperms.
Naked seeds.
Yep, literally. Because the ovules, which become the seeds, aren't enclosed inside an ovary structure. Think of a pine cone. The seeds are right there on the scales.
Exposed. Okay.
They're much better adapted to dry land than ferns. Wind pollination is common, so no need for swimming sperm. The gamophytes are tiny, protected within the sporophyte tissues. Conifers, cycads, ginkgo, those are gymnosperms.
So no more separate little gamophyte stage living on its own.
Right, highly reduced.
And that brings us to the dominant group today, angiosperms, flowering plants.
The rock stars of the plant world, you could say.
Hmm.
The sources really emphasize their diversity, key innovations, flowers obviously for reproduction, and seeds enclosed within a fruit.
Ah, the fruit, for protection and dispersal.
Exactly. And they're everywhere, almost every habitat. They give us most of our food, timber, medicines. Just incredibly successful.
So looking back at this whole sequence from the sources, algae in the water, bryophytes needing dampness, pteridophytes with vascular tissue but still tied to water for sex, gymnosperms with naked seeds breaking that tie, and finally angiosperms with flowers and fruit.
You can really see the trend, can't you? Increasing complexity, better adaptation to land, less dependence on water for reproduction, the shift from gnidophyte dominance to sporophyte dominance.
Yeah, and those steps like heterosperine ferns really seem like pivotal moments, setting the stage.
Definitely paving the way for seeds.
It makes you wonder, looking at how these plants are classified by structure, by these evolutionary links, if you had to pick one innovation mentioned in the sources, vascular tissue, seeds, maybe flowers, fruit, which one do you think was the most crucial tipping point for plants to truly conquer and diversify across land?